Hello guys, today we will be talking about the new unique item Atziri Rule, which is dropped exclusively from Uber Atziri herself. In case that you are already very familiar with the game and all the mechanics that you need to know before making this build, then you can proceed to the TLDR section later in this video where I will be saying all the necessary gem links and also the necessary item for you to make this build. Now, essentially, this build is very similar to an archmage build. As you can see from the skill tree, it's a very classic, any form of archmage build works around the same thing. Right, whether it's mana stacking, archmage, or anything, even starting from ascendants, even as an ascendant, it still works pretty much similar to the same thing. So essentially, what this item does is that it gives you a new skill called Queen's Demand, which is this skill right here. On its own, it actually does nothing other than triggering the other two spells, which is Flame of Judgment and Storm of Judgment. So every time you cast it, it actually alternates between these two spells. Essentially, it's Atziri skills herself. Now, I have seen a lot of people asking, oh, can I support the skill with cast when channeling, cast when damage taken, or cast on critical strike? And the answer is no, because these things are essentially a trigger sub-spell. It triggers other spell by doing something. Now, essentially, whenever you cast this Queen's Demand, right, you are triggering the other two spells. So if you're supporting with like cast on critical, for example, you are actually triggering a spell to trigger another spell, and the game doesn't work that way. It's like saying that, oh, can I support cast on channeling together with cast on critical strike? Is no. The answer is very obvious, no. Right, and also when it comes to things that specify that they will never support trigger skills, such as archmage is one of them, mind and trap spell totems, and even brand skill. Now, even though this build cannot be supported by archmage, but actually you can indirectly support it by using arcane cloak. It gives a flat added lightning damage to anything whenever you spend mana for arcane cloak. And look at this right here. I can show you how busted this is. And as you can see right here, right now the damage itself is 60k, and by pressing one button, arcane cloak, damage now is 251k. Coming back to here, as you can see, the skill itself has an innate cooldown of 1.5 seconds. Both of this, which means that no matter how fast you are casting the spell, you are always being bottlenecked by the cooldown itself. So you can use any sort of global cooldown recovery to reduce the cooldown time, such as the mods on the belt or mods on the boots, or sometimes second wind. But I don't know why it doesn't actually work. I have tested it out. Second wind cannot reduce the cooldown of these two skills. Maybe it's a bug, maybe it's a feature, who knows. And finally, we are moving to the skill gem links. Now, essentially, less duration is a must because, as you can see right here, without less duration, the time it takes until it actually does damage is freaking long. And this is very dangerous for all kinds of situations. By supporting the skill with less duration, as you can see here, it makes the skill drop way much faster than it was before. Right, so less duration is essentially a must. And Arcane Surge is very classic. Archmage, added effectiveness because of the skill tree. Control destruction, nothing much to say. Elemental penetration, this is much better. Now you could actually use Awaken Lightning Penetration if you wish to, because most of the damage is coming from Arcane Cloak. But I suggest that you get Elemental Penetration because most of the damage has fire component as well. As you can see here, spell fire damage is 40k. It's actually a lot. And if you don't know how to get the skill gem, you can go and Google a PoE wiki. They will teach you how to render it for skill gem like this. And finally, Awaken Increased Area Effect. Support is pretty good because it helps the clear speed, and they also improve the the area overlapping for boss fights. Essentially, whenever the boss is standing in the middle of the flame blast, the Venn diagram, they actually take 2 times the damage because the area overlapping. So I would suggest that if you could afford it, you should get Awaken Increased Area Effect because it doesn't have the damage penalty of the normal one. Now, of course, you could use Concentrated Effect for the damage, but as you can see here, it isn't really that good. It reduces the area by a lot, and it removes our clear speed. I just don't feel too good about it. And finally, the last slot is that a lot of people have been saying Unleash is a good support gem, but it is actually not. Because Unleash, even though that it has 3 repeats, which means that you get 4 casts, you don't actually bypass the cooldown. Because as you can see, all you see is 2 Flame Blasts, which means that you only get 1 cast even though that you have 4 repeats, which is, it doesn't bypass. It's a bad spell. And therefore, Spell Echo is actually a way much better option. because all you want is actually just 2 spells all the time, right? Which is, the Storm and the Flame Blast all the time. And Spell Echo does exactly what we want. And finally, to the item builds. Essentially, the build function is very similar to any form of archmage build, and usually the only difference is the staff, which people use Flash of Hands because they want the extra mana and the Spell Echo. But of course, in this build we're using the new unique item. Essence Worm, the unique Cloak of Defiance, and then any resist filler, and resist filler. Now, the best if you can get mana and life on them, and then some resist on them is the best. This is also a resist filler, and then Atziri Forever, the classic, and then finally the helmet. Right now, this helmet is very essential for the build, as you can see. Increased spell damage for each mana spent. Now, for some reason, I don't know why some of the support skill gem doesn't actually increase the mana cost of the item, of the skill. I mean. But well, see, it doesn't matter because the base mana cost is pretty high itself. So actually, as you spam it out, right, when you're mapping, you can actually sustain it about 2000 mana cost per cast. As you can see soon, right about here. Yep, right now it's 2000 mana cost, right? And 2000 mana cost, which means that every single cast you get about 200% increased spell damage, which is more than what you usually get from the skill tree. That's why I think that this is actually the best in slot. And for the cooldown recovery, is it necessary to get cooldown from your boots or your belt? I don't think it's necessary. It's very easy to see for the kill, right? So how do I know that the skill is finished cooldown? So as long as you get a visual kill that the storm has ended, and then you can use it again. For example, right? If I use it and I see the animation ended, and then I cast it again, and it goes very smoothly. As long as you see the animation end, you can actually cast it again without a hassle. So this is actually pretty good. I don't think you need to push for the final cooldown recovery of like what, 10%, 20%? It's not really necessary. Now from this point onwards, I'm trying to show you a footage of me doing a Uber Labyrinth. Now this is to showcase that the damage number that you are looking at 75 level. Enjoy!
Strikes without hesitation. It is the sovereign towers the center is to act. You were born for this. Sweep the trappings of past emperors aside. Make your empire an aspirant can afford to be promising. An emperor must keep. You must navigate your empire through trouble.
A golden device hidden by a rotting emperor overflows with power.
And right here, I was trying to do a tier 16 Guardian map with more monster HP life, just to give you an idea of what is the number that the build is actually doing. Now, even though that this is not the fastest kill in the world, but as somebody who's really underleveled, this is actually doing pretty good. I sped up the whole progress of the mapping so that you can skip to the boss fight immediately. So in the end, how do you think about the build? Do you like it or do you not? I personally think that this is actually a pretty strong build considering the price that it costs. Everything that you can get a whole build under like what 3x. Yep, you can get the whole build under like 3x and it's actually pretty good. As you can see from the previous clip that it does so well against Guardian even though that I'm so under leveled. And you know all these items it's under 100C easily. I think the most expensive one has to be the armor piece, but you know it's fine. Right, and if you're watching this in Ultimate League, I would suggest you to get it done ASAP because you know the philosophy of GGG goes by there's no fun allowed. So I think this is most likely going to get nerfed in the next league and you will never be able to see it again. Right. So you know, have fun with it. Thanks for watching.